Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. A very warm welcome to our viewers for our Ramadan program, which is a study of the book entitled Contemplating the Quran, a thematic 30-part commentary on the Noble Quran by Sheikh Ahmad Saad Al-Azhari Al-Hassani, who has very graciously given us the ijazah to present and to discuss his book. Just to give a small introduction to Sheikh Ahmad, his name is Sheikh Ahmad Muhammad Saad Al-Maliki Al-Azhari. His lineage goes back to the beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam through the Prophet's grandson, Sayyidina Hassan ibn Ali radiyallahu anhuma. His life, Sheikh Ahmad's life, is one of studying and teaching from a very young age, and he is one of the students who has gone through the Al-Azhar system of schools, and he has also studied traditional Islam under numerous shuyukh. Sheikh Ahmad Saad Al-Azhari travels widely to spread the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of his interests include loving to compose poetry, and he does this in Arabic and to some extent in English as well. He is the director of the UK-based Ihsan Institute for Arabic and Islamic Studies. So Bismillah, to start off with the book, we will look at the author's preface or his introduction. And he says, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the ever merciful, the glorious Quran is the light and everlasting miracle of this community. It remains as fresh as it was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to inspire hearts and minds, guide the steps of humanity, and strengthen believers' trust in its authenticity and divinity. So he gives a very brief but very striking introduction to the Quran. He says that since its revelation, scholars of Islam served this book in various respects and filled the Islamic library with works elaborating its meanings, recitation styles, linguistic and literary miracles, in addition to many other aspects of its beauty. So scholars have studied the Quran through a myriad of angles, from different angles, to cover it completely, to cover it comprehensively. It is not exaggeration, he says, to claim that the Muslim scholarly community has exhausted all efforts to serve this book, yet still it remains open for more. The Quran always offers up more than what we have covered. There is so much more in store for us to explore and to enjoy and to learn from. Muslims today, he says, are in dire need of being reconnected to the Book of Allah in a way that makes it accessible to them and enables them to reflect on its messages, internalize its meanings, and turn it into action plans. Books of tasfir that explain the meaning of the Quran are voluminous, and people's patience for reading them is very thin. This has left average Muslims with a barrier between them and the Quran. Their share of it, in the best of situations, is to quickly read its words or listen to it without any reflection on or understanding of its deeper meanings. So the Sheikh talks about the books of tasfir that explain the meanings of the Quran, that there are so many and such in-depth that it is not possible, or rather people today are not willing, not that it is not possible, but people today are not really willing to sit down and to explore it in depth. So he says the Quran is being aired around the clock on radio, TV, and on the internet, and fully recited in Taraweeh during the blessed month of Ramadan. Yet, Muslims' enjoyment of it still remains locked to the letters and the words. So they enjoy it as far as the letters and the words are concerned. As far as its recitation is concerned, there is a bit of a lack of going deeper in its meanings. He says this becomes more evident when you hear some crying behind an imam reciting a verse about something that should not invoke tears at all. So again, a deeper understanding of its real meanings is something that is missing. And then the Sheikh explains other aspects of it, and he goes on to tell us that the book in hand the book that we are studying, the Contemplating the Quran. He says the book in hand is not a replacement of tafsir works. Rather, it is a handy manual and an accessible guide to every Muslim to be able to connect to the core messages of the Quran. He has made it easy to understand. The author tells us that this is like a handy manual, something that we can refer to again and again, something that is not voluminous, something that would that would not be difficult for us to contemplate, or which would require a lot of time or a lot of effort on our part. It takes the 30 parts of the Quran as its essential units, he says, since a Muslim is recommended to read one part of the Quran every day, reciting the whole Quran over a month. So this is the 30-fold division of the Quran into the 30 juz that we are aware of, and that we are supposed to recite a juz every day, so that we can recommend it, as is recommended, complete the Quran over a period of a month. It should, if consulted regularly, that is his book here, the one that we are discussing, give an elucidated preview of what each part aims to deliver in its entirety. So it gives a deeper explanation, but in a summary kind of a way, which is easily read and easy to digest, and gives an explanation of an entirety of the juz, an explanation of the meanings of the juz. There are various other ways of looking at the Quran, the Sheikh says, and its themes. Some people would prefer to look at the thematic unity of each surah, chapter, while others would love to look at the thematic unity of every group of verses. So this is how people would like to divide it, maybe according to the juz or according to groups of verses. I believe, says the Sheikh, all of these attempts are lawful and justified as long as they are carried out by individuals who have mastered the tools required for them, including mastery of Arabic grammar, rhetoric, morphology, circumstances of revelation, Islamic legal theory, and consulting existing tafsir works. So, very importantly, Sheikh Ahmad Saad tells us that however we want to approach the Quran, if individuals decide to approach the Quran according to the theme of the juz, or they want to cluster some verses together and they would like to expound upon its meanings, there is a prerequisite. There is a certain thing that is required before you embark on such a huge task, such a monumental task, and that is that you have to have the tools of understanding this book, of understanding the Quran. And this is something that is lacking with us today. There are individuals who come up, individuals who want to expound, so to speak, on meanings of the Quran according to their own whims, according to their own wishes, according to their own understanding, without having these tools which would be a guiding light for us to understand the Quran. And he enumerates those tools. He says that individuals should have mastered them, mastered these tools, and they include having a mastery of Arabic grammar, rhetoric, morphology. This is connected to grammar again. Circumstances of revelation, why a particular verse was revealed at a particular time and what was the reason behind it. Islamic legal theory is also required. And also, very importantly, consulting existing tafsir works, works that have been written by masters who have done their, who have contemplated upon this Quran, who have the requisite knowledge, who have the requisite background in order to write tafsir upon this glorious book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Shaykh says that the Quran is like a fountain of water. While everyone is supposed to drink from it, only experts can tell the percentage of different minerals in the water and elaborate on their composition and benefits. Again, the requirement of experts is absolutely necessary and of paramount importance. The Sheikh says the Arabic title of the book is Guiding Those with Intellect to the Best Way to Reflect. However, for the sake of ease, we decided on the English name Contemplating the Quran, as contemplation is an act of worship and contemplating the Quran is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And further on, the Shaykh concludes by saying, may Allah make this work a key that opens the locks of hearts and breaks the seals of ignorance. Ameen. May it be a companion for those who want to access the Quran, a connection for those who are distant from the Quran, and a means of understanding and tasting its beauty. Allah is the source of all success. Sheikh Ahmad Saad Al-Azhari Al-Hassani, Birmingham, February 2017. So dear viewers, this was the introduction to his book by the Sheikh himself. If we can now go straight into the core of the book, and just to give you an understanding or a background, this book is divided into 30 parts corresponding to the 30 juz, the 30-fold division of the Quran that we are used to. So he has 30 parts. We start with part 1, in which he has titled part 1, The Objectives of the Divine Message and the Dispositions of Those Addressed. So the objective of Allah's message, the reason He has sent it to us, and the nature of those who are addressed. The ones who are addressed in the Quran are us, the people to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses when He revealed the Quran as wahi to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this part 1, as we know, the juz is comprises Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah. So to commence, the Shaykh says, the Holy Quran is a book of pure guidance that has been revealed to rectify all affairs. To correct all affairs. In pursuit of this critical aim, it spares no effort in providing every type of direction and in removing every possible obstacle. So, in order to rectify, the Shaykh says that there are two things that are required. And these are the two things that the Quran addresses. One is the direction that we should take, and the other is to remove any possible obstacles in that direction. If we do these two things, we will rectify our affairs, which is the aim of the Quran. So the verses of Al-Fatiha demonstrate this clearly. The chapter is a conversation with God held on the tongue of its reciter. When we recite Surah Fatiha, we are actually conversing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who presents praise and laudation whilst witnessing the reality of submission in His very presence. So the one who is reciting is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is at the same time submitting to Allah in His presence. The Shaykh says his intimate discourse continues, the one who is reciting Surah Fatiha, his intimate discourse continues with seeking guidance upon the straight path, that clear path trodden by the righteous in every land and age. It's a path that we have to follow. It's a path that we do not invent ourselves. It's a path that the righteous have already laid down for us. They have already laid down the tracks for us. It is upon us to follow those tracks. And seeking protection from the ways of temptation. So Surah Fatiha also tells us, or also is a way in which we ask Allah to give us protection from the ways of temptation. The paths of the misguided, who sought the truth but did not take the proper means, and hence could not find it, and those who have incurred wrath upon themselves. So the two important things is to look out for the path that was taken by those before us, and this is the way for us to get our salvation, and to be away from those who have incurred wrath upon themselves. The obstinate who willfully opposed Allah and His Messenger. We are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection from those who have been obstinate, from those who have deliberately gone away, deliberately opposed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message. And then the author tells us, Sheikh Saad tells us, that the chapter Al-Baqarah expounds on this foundational aim of the Quran as it discusses the message and those addressed by it. So Surah Baqarah gives a further explanation from Surah Fatiha, laying out their backgrounds and attitudes. So this is the backgrounds and the attitudes of the people who are addressed, us, we, the Muslims. In like manner, it surveys the Quran's distinguishing features in terms of law and beliefs as relating to individuals, society, and the world in its entirety. So it also goes, Surah Baqarah also goes into the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beliefs as they relate to the individuals, before concluding with the mention of the measures that may be taken by anyone who has committed an error in their adherence to the message. So not only it surveys the distinguishing features of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but even if since we are not infallible, since we are prone to mistakes, it also teaches us, or it also tells us how to adhere to the message in case we have committed an error. So the Shaykh says the message is one of truth into which neither doubt nor uncertainty enter. It is a protected message. It is a message that is firm and it cannot be questioned because it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, held within a book whose meanings cannot be encompassed by the intellect of man. Then the Shaykh says that it is in a book, the book is such that our intellect is not enough, cannot fully comprehend the meanings of this book, and every intelligent person knows that. So he says the intelligent person believes in the reality of it being from Allah, taking from it that which is able to grasp, while submitting to the Lord of the worlds and acknowledging his complete inability to encompass all within it. So he takes whatever he can, the intelligent man, knowing fully well that he cannot at any level comprehend it in its entirety. He has that in his mind. He acknowledges that. For that which is concealed from us is vaster than that which has been uncovered. In chapter 2, verses 1 to 2. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals is actually a small portion. What he has concealed is a bigger portion. Nonetheless, the way people adapt it varies according to their states. There are the successful ones who answer to its call and derive benefit from it. In chapter 2, verses 3 to 5. So how we benefit from it depends upon our states, as the Shaykh tells us, and how we respond to it also. And our extent of responding to it is the extent to which we are then successful. He says there are those who shut their hearts, hearing and sight, such that nothing of its light reaches or avails them. And this is from verse 6 to 7. And then there are the hypocrites who hide their disbelief and manifest otherwise. So these are the different categories of people. There are those who shut their hearts, hearing and sight, who do not want this message to be conveyed for them, or are not willing for this message to be conveyed. There is another group, which is the group of the hypocrites. They hide their disbelief and manifest it otherwise. Due to the danger they pose, the Quran explicates their characteristics in fully 13 verses. Now, such people, such hypocrites, pose a grave danger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes it upon himself to explain or to expound upon them or to give us details about them in full 13 verses. And this is in chapter 2, verses 8 to 20. This is the characteristics of the hypocrites. Some of which, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about them, that the way in which they manifest their hypocrisy, some of which are mockery, falsehood, faithlessness, spreading corruption, and harboring sickness of the heart. These are the tools of the hypocrites. In elucidation of their characteristics, this chapter sets forth for us two parables. We are explained their characteristics through two stories, which emphasize the ugliness of their state and confirm that they get nothing from their actions except harm, just as a person who makes a fire in a dark night gets nothing except ashes after its flames and light are gone. Thereafter, the verses call upon man to worship Allah alone and to fulfill the right of the Creator. So, a parable is given of a person who lights a fire in the dark, but he gets nothing from it, he gets no guidance from it, he gets no direction from it, except for the ashes after its flame and light are gone. That will be the result of the actions of the hypocrites. The chapter then proceeds to introduce several obstacles that prevent people from receiving, accepting, and benefiting from the divine message. What stops them from getting all this? The first of these impediments is claiming knowledge independent of God. So if you claim to have knowledge independent of God, you're not going to benefit from this Quran. You're not going to receive from it, you're not going to accept from it the divine message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. All knowledge and instruction that does not proceed from submission to Allah corrupts the heart of a man and afflicts it with arrogance. The result of thinking that you alone have the knowledge without any reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds arrogance to your heart, making your heart hard. Reading and teaching must be in the name of Allah. If not, their harm is tremendous. Everything returns to Allah. So we have to read, we have to learn, we have to teach with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not through our own whims, our own desires. The second obstacle is the devil. So the first obstacle is ourselves. The second obstacle is the devil, shaitan, whose arrogance and delusions of grandeur prevented him from responding to the command of Allah and prostrating to Adam. And this is in chapter 2, verse 34. So the devil is the one who capitulated, who went against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who had arrogance. And this also this is an obstacle that prevents people from receiving the message of the Quran. The Shaykh says, amongst the many impediments that hinder man's guidance are the breaking of promises and distortions of words from their places, cloaking falsehood in the garb of truth, obeying lowly desires in exchange for guidance, contentment with ephemeral gain. And this is in chapter 2, verses 40 to 43. Overweening human greed and discontentment with one's allotted share. Chapter 2, verse 61. Ingratitude at favors and evasion of laws. Chapter 2, verse 65. And disputation, as demonstrated in the story of the heifer. So the author is telling us, he's still talking about the impediments that come in the way of man's guidance. And he lists those as breaking of promises, distortion of words from their places, cloaking falsehood in the garb of truth, obeying lowly desires, and the others that we have mentioned, human greed, discontentment. All of these things prevent us from actually gaining the essence of, actually benefiting from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. He says, worship of the heifer is an ancient practice, and this is a story that is mentioned in the Quran, that has occurred throughout human history, with even the ancient Egyptians and Assyrians taking a calf as an idol. The calf of a cow, taking it as an idol. Yet, till today, some still take the heifer as an object of worship in place of God, despite the verses that discuss the issue being few in number. So the verses are in chapter 2, verses 67 to 73. They nonetheless serve to proffer two important lessons. The story of the heifer, the story of the calf, gives us two important lessons. Firstly, they remove the image of sanctity that surrounds the heifer in the minds of some people. So the heifer, the calf, the young of the cow, is not something that has any sanctity to it. Secondly, they impart a lesson to the believers. Do not make matters difficult for yourselves through incessant questioning. Do not question too much. Do not question excessively. The children of Israel had been commanded to sacrifice a heifer, a calf, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they were stubborn, as is conveyed to us in Surah Baqarah, persistingly seeking further details despite the clarity of the original command. When Allah gives you a command, follow it. Do not ask too many questions, because this will deviate you from the path. This will take you away from the message. As a result, the specifications were increased so much that it made searching for a suitable one an exceedingly difficult task. What they decided to do, their excessive questioning came back to haunt them, in that it was something that was of a loss, that was of detriment to themselves. Hence, their argumentation only made a clear and simple command burdensome for them, the Shaykh tells us. Other great obstacles that hinder guidance are arrogation of oneself over others, and a sense of entitlement to the truth. And this is in chapter 2, verses 111 to 113. To feel greater, to feel superior to others. Likewise, envy and hatred, the diseases of the heart, which lead to rejecting truth unless it comes from anyone other than oneself. So again, these are the impediments that we are talking about. This is in chapter 2, verses 105 to 109. Given that this message is a means to guidance, in conclusion, the Shaykh tells us, it is incumbent upon parents to counsel their children to preserve and hold fast to it. Now, the importance of the family, the importance of children comes in as expounded in Surah Baqarah. The Shaykh says, just as Abraham counseled his son and Jacob his successors, that those who come after may be connected to those who came before, and those who follow may take from those who precede. In this way, the caravan of light and guidance will continue upon the earth till the day of resurrection. And this is a conclusion of chapter 2, verses 132 to 137. So the importance of propagating, or the importance of moving this message forward through our children, through giving guidance to our children so that they are on the right path as well, so that they follow our pious predecessors. They have a connection to them and they can take from them, so that this light, this guidance continues. There is an assurity that this light and guidance will continue until the day of resurrection. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an understanding of the Quran as He meant it for us, and that we are able to stay away from the obstacles that have been explained in this regarding this juz by Sheikh Ahmad Saad Al-Azhari. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us success in all that we do. We will carry on with the explanation of part 2. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.